Thank you. That's so pretty. You sing so good. She sings like an angel, doesn't she? God, really love that. Well, this is January, and in January, in Science of Mind centers all over the place, we talk about the basics. What is it that our philosophy is? What do we believe in? What's it all about? And so I'm going to mention 4 truths today that we talk about. One of the truths is that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And what will happen is that when I drop this shell of a body, I will again be spirit. So that's one of the truths. And we got to awaken to this. We got to remember this, because when we remember this, I think it takes us away from the day-to-day drama of our world. You know, when we think we are this little third rock from the sun, and what a little minuscule part we are on that little tiny rock from the sun. Let's just remember we are spirit having a human experience, and just remember that. And I think it lightens up the way we view our life on this earth plane. Another truth is that this higher power, whatever we call it, God, Allah, Jehovah, whatever you want to call it, that higher power is a power that experiences life in, through, and as its creation. That the power is within us. We don't have to call out to some guy on a white cloud someplace begging for mercy. That power is within us, and that power is a power to create. And so, again, it's important to be aware of this. If we forget about this, if we don't think about it, go through our life walking into walls, this, that, and the next thing, that'll happen. But to be aware that there is a power within us, that we can always, we're never alone. We've got that power within us. Change our thinking, change our situation. And then today I'm going to focus on this truth that there's a creative process that we call the law, and how that works, how we have that, we can be available to that. Let Spirit work in, as, and through us. We're going to get that circle up there? Okay. And to me, it reminds me of an old hymn. I think when I learned that hymn when I was a kid, it was about missionary work. Here am I, send me, send me. And in this instance, in our philosophy, I think we can say, here am I, use me, experience life in, as, and through me. And then there's another 4th truth, and that is the fact that God is good. God is good all the time. That those attributes of God, peace, love, joy, balance, available all the time. And we simply need to align ourselves with that. Get in agreement with that. Acknowledge that God is good all the time. So again, today we're talking about being available to that power within us and to create a good life for us. Holmes says in his book called This Thing Called You, he says, let nothing come forth from your mouth that you would not want to have returned to in your life. Those thoughts, those thought seeds that you plant in this middle part, which is the law, that's the soil, are going to manifest in your life. So think about what words we say, the thoughts we think, because we are going to manifest. They are going to manifest in our life. So, Jesus used this same law. That's how he walked on water. That's how he fed multitudes of people. And he said, you guys can do the same thing I'm doing. Holmes says, how much of this power can you use? All of it, much as you can accept. Now, I can't walk on water. I don't walk on water. I don't believe I can walk on water. Therefore, I can't walk on water. And yet, there are so many experiences I've had where the situation looked kind of futile, hopeless, scary, challenging. And I turned it over to my higher power, saying, I know there's a perfect solution in spirit for this situation. I acknowledge that. I'm willing to work with it. And I speak my word, it is done unto me, and it is all good. And as I've done that throughout my umpteen years in this philosophy, and I've seen other people have this same experience, what a wonderful manifestation of this idea that we are creative. It's a perfect solution in the mind of spirit for any perceived dilemma in our lives. Our words have the power of the Almighty. And last week, I don't know how the rest of you felt. A lot of you were here in this room last week, and the city, this area in Minnesota, I guess as a whole, is going through a lot of unrest. And last Sunday, I think a lot of us were moved by Debbie's thoughtful words about creating peace. And I think by the time we got out of here, we were uplifted. We had some hope. We had the love filled this room. That's why we come here. We're community. We can lift each other. And Debbie addressed that beautifully. We are creative beings by our word. So this is what we call the creative process. It's the law, and it's neutral. That middle part is like soil. It's like the soil that the farmer plants his seed into. And that soil doesn't care what seed goes in there. That soil is not going to say, no pumpkins this year, we only want radishes. Not going to do that. That soil is going to take whatever seed the farmer planted, and that is what we are going to reap. The same goes for us. If we're planting seeds of resentment and anxiety and judgment, who does that? We all do it sometimes. So it's so important to watch our thoughts and keep them positive and constructive, and then really think about keeping our thoughts on things like love and forgiveness and joy, seeing the end result of being good, joyful. So that's the creative process. We have the power to plant those thought seeds, and they will manifest as we've planted them. The only thing between our dreams, what we desire in life, and that manifestation is up here, our thoughts. We can cultivate them by watering them with our visualization of good, or we can do the opposite and worry about it and dig that seed up and say, why isn't it working for me yet? We can do that. Let's just keep those thoughts positive and constructive. And you might say, well, yeah, that's easy for you to say, but you should see my boss. He's a jerk. My wife spends all my money. My kids are just unbelievable, out of control. I got roadblocks in my life. Things are not easy for me. I'm sure we've all said that at times. Easy for you to say, not so easy for me to say. And yet, Ernest Holmes says, by the activity of our thought, things come into our life, and we are limited only because we have not known the truth. We have thought that outside things controlled us. The boss, the wife, the kids, the money situation. When all the time we have had that within us, which could have changed everything. and given us freedom from bondage. I was thinking about the story I've told you a few times when my kids were little and I was married to my first husband, Steve, and he was a drinker and he got paid on Friday. And it was very important that he come home on Friday, because if he came home on Sunday night, there was no money. There was usually a lawyer involved, a car accident or a fight or a hospitalization or something. So very important that he come home on Friday night. An outside event, if you get my drift. So I go into my closet where there's a full-length window. I'm standing there demanding that God bring him home. I gave God 60 seconds. I counted down. I wasn't so grounded then. And that's what I did. I mean, talk about insanity. And 60 seconds were up, and I'm screaming, I'm swearing at God. Terrible, just awful. And so finally, when I'm kind of spent, I'm exhausted. I go down, I sit on a chair in the living room, and I just kind of collapse. And I didn't know about science of mind then. I was a Missouri Synod Lutheran. I had a lot of faith in God, and I would preach to God. I told God, you told me you'd never give me anything I couldn't take. I could quote scriptures to God. Didn't seem to make any difference to him. And so I collapsed on a chair, and I just kind of surrendered and said, just give me peace. Peace. Not outside stuff, peace. And when I spoke my word for peace that passes all understanding came upon me. And again, this is before I knew anything about the creative process, but it never escaped me that swearing at God and demanding God bring Steve home, that didn't work. That wasn't effective. And yet by claiming the gifts of spirit, peace, that changed everything. Holmes said, all the good that you desire awaits your acceptance of it. But you cannot experience it while you deny it. The key to right thinking and right living is the steady, affirmative pattern of thought that only God's good enters your life. And that's why keep those thoughts positive and constructive. And I want to emphasize this today, this idea of thinking about that. Only good is mine from God. Emma Curtis Hopkins says, there's good for you and you ought to have it. She knew that. She knew that very well, and she preached it. There's a story about this little girl. She's 11 years old, and she had some very horrible disease, and it had to do with her nervous system. She couldn't walk, and she was missing some other movements of her body. She was in bad shape, and the doctors really didn't have any hope because they said nobody really ever gets better from this. But this little girl, nobody told her that. She was in that hospital bed thinking, I'm going to get better, I'm going to get better. The little girl was undaunted. Now, my word for the year is dauntless. That word to me means courageous, bold. I'm not going to be bowled over by circumstances and happenings in the outer world. I want to be dauntless. And she was undaunted. She was lying in that hospital bed telling everybody, yeah, I'll get better one of these days. I'm going to be walking. That'll be great. And they transferred her to a hospital in San Francisco. and, put her through the therapies that they do. And again, they didn't really have much hope for her. But they also taught her about imaging and about visualizing. And so they told her, visualize yourself being able to move on your own, to be able to, you're not going to be confined to this bed forever. Visualize that. Visualize the way you want to be. And so she worked real hard at her physical therapy and did the whirlpools and did all these exercise sessions that they put her through, but she also worked on this visualization and this imaging of how she wanted to be. And then one day while she was doing this, she was in this mode of visualizing herself being strong and being able to move around. Her bed started moving. Her bed started moving right across the hospital floor, and she's like, yay, I can move, I'm doing it, I'm effective, I'm powerful. Well, of course, the rest of the stuff was moving too. The equipment was falling down, glass was breaking, the nurses were screaming, and of course it was an earthquake. But in her mind, she was convinced she was powerful. And within a couple years, guess what? She was off to school on her own, walking and seeing herself as indeed she had visualized herself. So let's think about that. Think about that idea that only good enters our life. And, the idea is that this law, that soul or soil part is neutral. It always says yes. So it really behooves us to plant some good seeds there, some good, solid seed thoughts. And if you find that you're out picturing this form, this body, this bottom part, you look around, you wonder what you've been thinking, look around at your life. How's it doing? How are your relationships? How is your financial situation? How are you doing physically? And if it's kind of faulty, perhaps you can look back and say, yeah, I've had some thoughts of lack, thoughts of resentment, thoughts of illness, thoughts of disharmony, fearful thoughts. And when we do that, that is what we get in our lives. On the other hand, when we think thoughts of love and joy and all good, that is what we accomplish. Ernest Holmes says in this thing called You. Now, I know some of you are not big Ernest Holmes fans. And yet, please listen to this by Ernest Holmes, because how could you not like this? It is important that you maintain a strict censorship over your thinking. Just as you watch your garden, that foreign seeds shall not fall into it, producing a growth of undesirable plants, so you must refuse entrance to any thoughts you do not wish to see manifested in your life. Guard well this garden of your mind. It is God's garden of your soul. It is your garden of Eden wherein may grow your fondest dreams and hopes, blossoming into fulfillment. Or if you permit the weeds of destruction, fear and doubt, will choke out the beauty of hope until despair alone remains. Watch carefully then this garden of your soul. Plant there only seeds of happiness, of joy, of peace and goodwill. It may be necessary to cultivate your garden, to uproot the weeds, and to straighten out the rows. This is Ernest talking. Plant some new seeds, new ideas, broader vision, deeper realizations of life. He says new aspirations must be bedded here, fertilized with the fervor of hope, the conviction of faith, the beauty of wholeness, and the quietness of peace. Watch your garden carefully. Guard it patiently, waiting for a new harvest. You shall reap what you have sown. Isn't that beautiful? That's Ernest talking. Sometimes he gets a little heady, but sometimes he says beautiful things like this that I think can touch the soul. So this science of mind message is really pretty simple. We are creative beings. And with every breath, we can be available to that power within us that can, as we speak our word, keep our thoughts positive, we can develop a life that is filled with joy, a life that fulfills the dreams we have, our desires. So do you believe that God is good all the time? That only God's good can enter your life? And we can affirm this, like when we do our morning prayers and our meditation and our affirmations, affirm that like the hymn said, "Here am I, send me, use me, experience life in, through, and as me." And watch for the opportunities that come up. Opportunities to say a nice word to somebody, to volunteer for something, to do a kind deed. And when we do this, I think we signal the universe and say, yeah, I'm available. Here I am. I'm available to work with spirit and create a happy, fulfilled life, not only for myself, but for everyone in my life. So it is. So I am not going to do the spiritual mind treatment today, because Charlie said some things on the call on Wednesday night that were very meaningful to people.